whether that be in different learning bubbles, whether that be in your class in terms of ability, or whether it be in terms of like a rota, or for those students that might be working at home. So what we're essentially going to be looking at is our groups function. Now, this might be a function that you've used previously. You might already use this, but did you know how many different ways it can get used on EducationCity? There are so many different uses for that groups function that I think will really benefit you in both sort of the teaching, setting homework, and in your assessment as well. So just before we get started, as we're going through, if you've got any questions for me, there are a couple things you can do. You'll notice that on your Zoom screen, there is a Q&A button. You can click onto that and ask me a question as we're going through. You can also do that anonymously as well by clicking on anonymous when you type in your question. And obviously I won't be able then to see your name or your details. If you don't want to do that, or if you can't think of any until the very end, don't worry, because I will give you my email address that you can send those questions over to, along with any feedback that you might have about today's webinar or any areas of EducationCity in general. Just before we begin, the account I'm going to be using, as always, is a made-up school. So please do not worry about any names that you might see, whether a student or staff, they are all made up. It is also an English account I'm going to be using as well. So some areas may appear slightly different to the account that you're going to be using if you're joining me today from outside of England. Okay, I think that's just about everything. So let's head over to educationcity.com and we can get started. And here we are logged into the home page. Now, as always, you can follow along if you wish to. All of these webinars are recorded though, so you can find them on our EducationCity homepage where you can sort of watch them in your own time. So you can use this traditional page if you wish to. It's got the same features. I just prefer the new view as it's got a bit more flow to it. I find it a little easier to use. So the groups function is in our manage users area. If you click onto that, you'll see you've got your students, your teachers and administrators. Make sure to update your students for the new academic year. And you'll find your groups tab right at the end on that right hand side. You'll see I've got quite a few groups already created in here, groups that other people have created as well. And you'll see there's quite a few. And imagine if you're creating 3 or 4 groups per subject area, maybe you've got those 4 different subject areas going on, you can end up with a lot of groups. So it's always worthwhile popping your class name, as you can see just there, or your initials, there we go, before that group name. Creating your group is really simple. It will talk you through. Click onto add group. This is where you'll pop the group name in. So again, always worthwhile popping your initials in just there. And then I find it quite beneficial to pop in the subject name and then maybe the group name just there as well. Now you can pop in some notes. Those notes are for your eyes only. Don't worry, because no students or parents will ever see those notes. So I've got my group. I've popped in any notes that I want to do. Now I can search for my students. Now I could search for them via name if I wanted to. For example, I could type in Brandon, which I know is one of my fake students here. Oops, there we go. Here he is. And I can click in the box there and move him over to this right-hand side. Just going to remove him from that group as well. What I could do though is search for all of my students, and if I'm just looking for the students within my class, I can type in my class name as it appears here. So I'm going to type in 4EM J, search for those students, and here they all are. Now I can hover over as well to see what groups students are already in. Have a look at those if I want to. And then just click in the box next to the students, as I mentioned before, students that you're after, and move them over to the other side. And it will tell you students in that group. There they are, just there. Now, you can have students in as many groups as you can possibly think of. There is not a limit, nor is there a limit as to how many groups you can actually have. So feel free to explore. And you can also have groups across classes, across year groups even. So you could have SEND groups, free school meals, pupil premium, and focus on those groups of students when you're looking at sort of the assessment data as well. Now that I'm happy with the student, I'm just going to save. Make sure that you do save, and you see my group has been created successfully. There we are. There it is, just there under my group 1 and group 2. If you're struggling with any of that or have gone a little too quickly for you, don't worry, because we do also have our help centre just here that will quite literally talk you through how to do something, how to create a group. And it will talk you through just there with those lovely orange signs. There we go. So that's the grouping function done. How is it relevant? It's relevant in so many ways. It enables you to set assessments for different groups of students. Here we go, you can have for a class or a group just there. So I can really differentiate these students if I want to. And then obviously I can go through, select the assessment that I'm after or the academic level. So great if you're after, for those students who may be working particularly lower than their peers or even higher than their peers. Now I have got a quick question just here. If I create a group with children from different year groups, can any teacher adjust that group? So the answer for that is no. Your groups are your groups. However, if you are working alongside a year partner, or if you're working maybe with somebody else in your school, maybe you've got sort of a split contract with them, I do think sometimes it's always worthwhile just to have the same account, so you don't have to create different groups and you can focus on those. But in answer to your question, no, nobody can edit those groups other than you. There we go. So just working through here, I'm just going to select a couple of these. You can see here I've got my group, I've got my assessment, I've got my publish date, which I can change just here, and I can set a title in. Now again, I always think it's worthwhile popping the group name that you set it for or the year group that you set it for, the assessment that you've done. So I'm just going to put math, end of year, and the date. Now, nobody thinks to do this, but if you pop the date in there that it's assessed for, if you want to repeat the assessment more than once, you can use that comparative data in our success tracker. There we go. And that's finished. So you can use it for assessments. Now, I've got another question just here. Oh, sorry, that's the same one. Just answered that. There we go. Okay, so not only does that grouping function come in really handy when you're setting assessments, but it will also benefit you when you're setting work for your students. So if I click in here, you'll find in the Students tab, you can have for a class or a group. So again, you can really differentiate the work that your students are getting, particularly if you're working carousel learning or you're working in sort of split bubbles in your classroom. You can sort of create those bubbles in the grouping function and then set work for those groups just here in the assigned section. Don't forget as well, in the preferences, you can also adjust the preferences depending upon the group that you set for. So things like turning the countdown timer off for any assessments and activities just there. And remember, all of our assessments and activities get marked for you. So you can always change the minimum pass rate and the percentage score just there as well. There we go. Once you've set those assessments, you can monitor them just here for those particular groups as well. There we go. So you can find that group that you set for, and you can start monitoring what your students have done. And you can have a look for your specific groups to see the last time your students logged in. There we go. Let's pop in that one just there, and you can see the last time they logged in there. You can also really handily, you can monitor their emojis that they've picked just there, their little avatars. So it's nice to sort of be able to monitor those, to be able to see maybe if somebody's having a bit of a bad time, for instance, they picked a sad emoji. There we are. So you can monitor those areas. So that grouping function is really, really useful. And just to go off topic a little bit, have a look at our new curriculum map. Because what this enables you to do is to filter down, if you haven't used it already, into your year group, the area that you're looking at, and that objective that you're looking for. And you've got these great color-coded signs here now, so you can see which tool is relevant in that particular area. So your blues are your activities, your reds are your learn screens, you've got orange for think it's, green for topic tools. You can really sort of filter down. And the great thing as well, we've now got our filters in terms of online resources and our printables. So if you do have any children that are maybe at the lower end of the digital divide, they can't access the work that you set for them at home, you could always find them some printables to do just here. Print those off if you wish to, open them up just there, print those off and create them a bit of a learning booklet to do at home if you need to. So have a bit of a look at that if you've got a spare 5 minutes. As always, you can get in touch with us. Our details are on the little question mark just there. And we've got our quick links still to our Play Live, our online safety, times tables and phonics, including our multiplication tables check and our new phonics screen tools. Yeah, brand new, as well as our free printables just here as well. And again, if you get a spare 5 minutes, have a look at our new games. You'll find them in our subjects area in English and maths, or if you're joining us from outside of England, maybe in your literacy and numeracy areas. So that is just about everything, other than remember everything in terms of assessment and activity can be marked for you, meaning that you can start tracking where your students are at. So once that assessment's completed, we can go through and start tracking our students and tracking those groups, those individual groups. So I'm going to look at Hufflepuff to start off with, and you can see the students in there, the last assessment that they did and the score they got just there. And we can also update these columns. So for that assessment, I'm not bothered about where they accessed it, the content type, I know it's an assessment, but instead I want to look at how long it took them, the questions they attempted, the questions they didn't attempt, and the questions available, as well as for any activities, you've got your curriculum objective there. And we've got that data, there it is just there, that we can then export for reporting purposes. Remember, you can do that for a class, group, or for an individual student as well. So that's a handy tool for parents this evening. Have a look at that. That is just about everything from me today. Just going to make sure I've got no more questions. No, I've not. So as I mentioned earlier, if you do want to get in touch with me, please feel free. Any questions about this webinar, any of the webinars you may have seen previously, or about EducationCity itself. Don't forget that they are all recorded and available on our website for you to watch in your own time. And I hope to see you at our next webinar. Until then, take care and stay safe. Bye-bye.